Hey guys, and welcome back to EQ Planes, and today I'll be flying on / reviewing the Air Canada A320 from Newark to Calgary. Definitely looking forward to this flight, as it will give me a chance to revisit Air Canada's older product with the blue seats, which is a product that in the past I've been very fond of. But before we get into any of that, let's start out with the check-in process in Newark, which today was relatively painless and didn't come with any hiccups. Now, Air Canada uses Terminal A at Newark, which is the oldest terminal they have. Now, although I found the check-in hall quite nice and well spaced out, don't let that fool you, as the rest of the terminal is kind of a disaster. Number one being security, which is all fit into this narrow little hallway, which eventually leads to the gates. And that narrow hallway can get pretty crowded, and there's not a lot of room to put security stuff, so security lines definitely move slow at Newark. When you do finally make it through what is usually a fairly long security line, you will arrive at a terminal which has a bunch of shops in the middle and seating spaced along the outside. It can definitely get crowded in there, as the general space just really isn't all that big. This is a terminal that Air Canada has used at Newark for a very long time, and they seem to share with JetBlue and United as well, even having their own branded seats in this particular terminal. However, fortunately for many of you, Terminal A's days are numbered at Newark Airport, as it's being replaced with a new Terminal A just kind of across from the existing one, which will replace all the flights that come in and out of this old section and lead to the eventual demolition of this area. One of the 3 satellite terminals has already been decommissioned and destroyed, and the new Terminal A should open sometime during this month. However, despite all the shoddy Wi-Fi and crowded spaces, I'm going to sort of miss this terminal, as this is the terminal I've flown into to get into New York every single time I've been. But times change, and this terminal's replacement is long overdue. I'll also mention that plane spotting from the terminal's alright, but nothing to write home about. It'll probably be better in the new one. Finally, without further ado, here's our aircraft that will be taking me to Calgary today, an almost 32-year-old Air Canada A320 registered Charlie Golf Papa Whiskey Golf. This aircraft is the oldest passenger aircraft in service with Air Canada as of right now. Particular A320's had a long history in Canada, starting its life out with Canadian Airlines in the early 90s, while also having served for Air Canada's short-lived subsidiary Tango, along with their luxury charter brand jets. But now let's take this opportunity to step on board the Air Canada A320 and see what it has to offer, especially in comparison to some of the new aircraft replacing it, like the 737 MAX. Now, when it comes to my first impression of the aircraft, it definitely does feel pretty dated, as this interior definitely does scream late 2000s, which is when it was developed. However, it does come with some nostalgic element, as interiors much like this were once present on almost all of Air Canada's fleet, and present on their 767, which was my favorite product of all time. However, the delivery of new 787s, A220s, 737 MAXs, the quick retrofits of the A330s, 777s, and the retirement of the E190 and 767 mean that this interior was pretty quickly wiped from Air Canada's fleet, besides the E175s and these A320 family aircraft. And with now having flown many of these aircraft with the new Air Canada interiors on them, part of me does miss these old blue interiors. But we'll get more into the details of the seat and how it contrasts and compares to Air Canada's other products in the air. Meanwhile, enjoy this taxi and takeoff from Newark Liberty International Airport. Anyways, now with that taxi and takeoff from Newark and that rather beautiful view of New York skyline, let's take a closer look at the seat. Starting with the general appearance of the seats, I definitely find the blue fabric to be dated. However, like I stated earlier, I do kind of like that look. The legroom was also perfectly fine. It was a little to the tighter side, however I am 6'2", and there were also many preferred seats on this aircraft, so if you're really in a crunch for legroom, there's definitely options. Along with the tray table was a little low on the knees, as the end of the tray table did kind of dig into my kneecaps a little bit, but other than that was definitely a good size. When it comes to the padding on these seats, I definitely found it to be worn. I have flown Air Canada seats that were a little newer back in the day. I did also recently fly their A319 back in 2021 with these seats on it, and I found them to be more comfortable on those particular aircraft. I found that the seats on this A320 had been definitely worn through all the years. I'll also mention that as of October of 2022, which is when this was recorded, Air Canada's in-flight menu had made a comeback. Unfortunately, though, they did seem to be out of a lot of the items on the menu, so choices were limited. The seat back pocket did also contain an air sickness bag and a safety card. Would definitely like to see a return of the Air Canada in-flight magazine. It was always kind of a nice touch to have on the aircraft, even though I didn't really look through them, except for the parts containing the aircraft areas, but it was always nice to have a little extra back there. And now it's time for Air Canada's infamously old in-flight entertainment en route system, which featured on a lot of their old aircraft and is definitely a part I don't really miss about these old interiors. It was a really slow system, didn't work very well, and all around in terms of options, it wasn't bad. However, you'd spend a lot of time getting to them. So whenever you settle on something, you better be prepared to watch that. But yeah, although the system's days are numbered, it will definitely live on within the memory of the Canadian public. Another thing I'll mention is you can certainly see these aircraft have seen better days just by looking at the wings, as the paint is a little bit patchy. And when it comes to Air Canada's old livery, which this aircraft is painted in, although I really like it, I do think that the new livery should be painted on a little bit quicker now. And if the in-flight entertainment was too slow for you, Air Canada does also offer Wi-Fi on board. I didn't purchase Wi-Fi for this flight, but from past experience with Air Canada's Wi-Fi, it is pretty good in general. Now it is time for the loo review, and the aircraft lavatory certainly wasn't anything special on the Air Canada A320s, but I will say it was much better than Air Canada's 737 MAX 8s, which have exceptionally small lavatories. So yeah. Still better than the 737 MAX 8 that's replacing it, but nothing to write home about. Air Canada did also come around with a couple free drink services as well. I did tend to find Air Canada's service throughout this whole experience to be pretty good, better than usual, I would say. When it comes to the question of how does this product compare to Air Canada's new products, I'm going to compare it to the product on their 737 MAX 8, as that will be directly replacing the A320 family aircraft. Now I find this product does hold up pretty well, but definitely does have some drawbacks. Like the IFE systems, I do tend to find the seats are pretty comfortable on this old product, a little more comfortable than the new product. However, the seats on this particular aircraft were pretty worn down. And I'll say that the 737 MAX is certainly a better plane to fly on than the A320ceos, as it's certainly much quieter and the Boeing Sky interior is quite nice. But yeah, there's no question that although this product is still pretty good, its days are numbered and will likely soon be retired with the A320s, and the E175s will likely be retrofitted at some point. So yeah, definitely going to miss this interior, but I can see why it's going. Anyways, stick around for my final thoughts and landing into Calgary. anyways, now that we're back in Calgary, I'll talk about my final thoughts on this aircraft. It will definitely be sad to see them go, but its time has come. It would have definitely been nice to have seen Air Canada significantly improve their product on their newer airplanes rather than create something on par and somewhat below their old product in some areas. But overall, I think what we're getting with the new products isn't all that bad. But anyways, that concludes my thoughts on today's flight. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I do have some exciting trips coming up with WestJet here, as I've decided on my way to Hawaii I will try and sample WestJet's entire product line. But yeah, stay tuned for that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and hope to see you guys back next time.